Hello everyone, thank you for being here. Today I'm sharing with you a mini kind of stretch focus class that's really geared towards those of us that go on hikes or even long walks or runs. I recently moved to Los Angeles and I've been doing a ton of hiking lately. There's some really gorgeous trails right up the street. And I love it. I love being in nature. I love, how strong it makes my legs. What I don't love, though, is how tight my hips get, and even my hamstrings. And my hamstrings tend to be generally fairly open. My hips, not so much, but they're much, much, much tighter lately than they usually are. I'm also a yoga teacher, and I practice yoga regularly. And I've noticed lately in the classes that I take that my hips are having a hard time opening up. So I was talking to one of my teachers the other day, and she asked me if I do any kind of post-hike stretches for the hips. And I don't. I never do. For some reason, I'm done with my hike. I rinse off, shower, and I go about my day. But I think it's really important after you hike or do a long walk or run, especially if your hips tend to get tight, to spend a couple of minutes doing some stretches. So that's what I'm going to share with you today, and I'm planning on doing these stretches myself as well every time I hike. Just kind of something that I'm going to add to my timeline of exercise so that my hips stay nice and open. And I think having open hips is an important aspect to a healthy body. It helps kind of maintain a healthy lower back. You're able to sit more comfortably if you do meditate. And it just feels better. So with that in mind, we're going to start. This is a quickie thing. A couple of props if you have them. A blanket or something that you can sit on for later on. And maybe a wall space to use for balance. And we're just going to do a couple of things in the beginning that might require the wall, and then some options towards the end as well. Okay? So I'm using a yoga mat. You do not have to. You can still be in your hiking clothes. You can be out out in the park somewhere. But this is just something that hopefully just these few postures, if you add them post-hike, post-run, post-long walk, they'll give you more open and healthy feeling hips and hamstrings, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stand up and have your wall close to you in case you want to use it for balance, okay? So stand up and start with your feet about hips distance apart, okay? Now focus your eyes somewhere that, ideally isn't moving too much. And then lift your right foot behind you and grab your foot or ankle with your right hand, okay? Now, if balance is really off for you, then bring your hand to a wall or a tree or wherever you are, and just stand for a moment. Now, what I want you to notice, look down at your legs, and notice if your right knee is in front of your left knee. So see if you can move your right knee back to line up with your left knee. Now, once you've done that, notice if your ribs and pelvis are leaning forward. So to get the most stretch in this pose, I want you to get your shoulders to stack over your hips, and I want you to try to lift the front of the pelvis. So contract your core muscles a little bit. Yeah, and then if you want to add the other arm, you can reach back with your left hand as well and hold your right foot. And just breathe here for a few moments. Yeah, and then keep just sliding the right knee back a bit, but lift the frontal hip bones. Yeah, and I'm not going to hold these poses too long for this class, but if you want to hold any of the poses longer, please do. All right, take another breath in. Now as you exhale, go ahead and release your foot, shake it out a little bit, and we're going to do the second side. So keep the right foot on the mat, bend your left knee, and grab your left foot. Yeah, and again, use a wall if you'd like. Yeah, and just see what's looking like in your body today. So if your left knee is in front of the right knee, good, move it back a little bit more. Lift the frontal hip bones. Good. Try to get your shoulders to stack over your hips. Yeah. And one thing you want to try to do is lengthen your tailbone down. So the more that you do that, the more stretch you're going to feel in those deep hip flexor muscles. Yeah, and then eyes just straight ahead. Some of us are going to reach back with the right hand as well and hold the foot. Yeah, if you're not falling over like I am. And just continue to breathe here. Yeah. And if you're holding the foot with both hands, Go ahead and press the shoulders back a little so you get a nice little shoulder stretch too. All right, now stay here as you inhale. And then as you exhale, go ahead and release your left foot. Okay, shake out your legs again. Now if you're using a mat, I'm going to just say step to the front of your mat, separate your feet hips distance apart, and bring your hands to your hips, bend your knees a little bit, and start to fold forward. Yeah. And then once you're folding, lower your hands to floor. Now, I'm not able to see what you're doing, but what I want you to pay attention to is your pelvis and your chest tipping forward. So a lot of times when we come into these hamstring stretches, and I see this a lot in my classes, our legs are straight, our knees are locked, our weight is way back in the heels, and your tailbone is tucked. And you can see as I'm doing this, my back is really rounded, and this doesn't get into the hamstrings at all. It actually kind of feels a little bit not so nice in the back and the lower back especially. So what I want you to do is try this. Bend your knees enough that you can touch the floor with your fingers, okay? Now once you touch the floor with your fingers, lean forward a little bit, not so much that the heels lift, but just enough, and then try to lengthen your sternum a little bit forward. So I want you to try to create length in the front body, and then move the sitting bones up towards the sky or the ceiling. And then keeping all of that, drop your head, okay? Yeah, and then little by little, as the hamstrings start to open up, you can start to straighten the legs. But do so not by pressing your knees back. So keep your weight slightly forward, but lift your quadriceps up and lift your hips up. Good. And then if you're very flexible in the hamstrings, good, really engage the muscles of your legs and try to move the sitting bones together a little more versus wide and up. So yeah, the more open the hamstrings are, the less we need to stretch them and the more we need to engage them. All right. Now from here, if your fingers are on the floor, good, you're going to step your right foot to the back of your mat. So you're in a long lunge. Yeah, and then bring your hands to either side of your front foot. And then from there, just drop your pelvis down and then lower your back knee for a moment. Yeah, you can point the foot and just really move into the stretch. So let your hips sink down and then try your best to have your left hand on the outside of your left foot. So your arm is pressing into your shin bone. Yeah, and then scissor the legs a little bit. Good. Now bring awareness to your tailbone. This is like the plate in the lower back. And I want you to imagine there's a weight there, pressing it down. Keep your tailbone heavy, tuck your back toes, and press your back knee away from the floor. Yeah. And then just pause in this lunge. Good. So fingertips or hands on the floor, lengthen the sternum forward. Stay here as you inhale. Now from there, come back to a forward fold. So step your right foot next to the left foot. Yeah, and then let's go ahead and switch sides. So step your left foot back. Good. Find a really, really long lunge. So move your left foot as far back as you need to until your right knee is above your ankle. And then from there, gently lower your back knee and point your back foot. Now as you sink into the hips, yeah, just see if you can keep your right arm on the outside of the right shin bone. And then the right outer hip, just slide it back and in a little more, but keep grounding through your right inner heel. Good. Now same thing, imagine your tailbone, imagine my hand is right here on your tailbone, pressing it down, keeping that, tuck your back toes and press the back knee up. And lift from the top of your thigh. Yeah, so you feel a little more of a stretch there. Nice. Good. Stay here as you inhale. And then from there, exhale, step to the front of your mat and fold. Okay. Now from the fold, put a little bend to your knees. Bring your hands to your hips. Move your sitting bones down first. And then from there, slowly stand up with a flat back. All right. Good. Now let's go ahead and sit down. So we're going to do some seated postures. And for some of these seated postures, it might feel nice to have a blanket or something to sit on. So I'm going to go ahead and take my blanket, fold it up, and sit on top of it, okay? So see how that feels? Some of us don't need it. Straighten your legs out in front of you, so sit up tall, okay? Now keep your left leg straight, bring your right foot in, and then drop your right knee down to the mat. This is called Janu Shirshasana. Now, start with your hands on either side of your left leg, and turn a little bit to the left knee. Stay here as you inhale. Now as you exhale, walk your hands towards your foot and fold, okay? Now, I mentioned my hamstrings are quite open. My hips, however, are not, okay? If you need to, back off a little bit. So you create more length between the pubic bone and the sternum. If you can fold fairly easily, then feel free to hold your foot and then turn the ribs towards the left leg. That's it. Yeah, and keep the right knee releasing down to the mat and just breathe here. So this gets into the left hamstrings, even the calf muscle. It gets into the right outer hip. It's into the lower back. All right. And again, I'm not going to stay here too long today, but feel free to hold this as long as you need to. But now look towards your foot as you inhale, and then walk your hands back in. Good. Now straighten your right leg, give the knee a little shake, and let's do the same thing on the second side. So pull your left heel in, bring your hands to either side of the right foot, or right leg rather, turn the ribs to the right, and then walk your hands towards your foot. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be very much. Remember, some of us, a little goes a long way, okay? If you're able to reach your hands towards your foot, grab your foot, and same thing, turn the rib cage a little more to the right, and just bend forward. And just take a few slow breaths here. Good, and it's nice to take a moment to just check in with the breathing too and slow it down. Good, so it's like these little mini meditative moments throughout our day. Okay. Now look forward as you inhale, and then walk your hands back in. Okay, now stay in your seat. Bring both of your feet together and open your knees wide. And I'm going to go ahead and turn around to face you now. So again, sitting on a prop might be nice. Now, sometimes our knees are way up here, and I've seen this a lot in a lot of my privates. So what I would suggest for those body types is to add more layers to whatever you're sitting on so it's a little taller. And then the other thing I would say is rather than thinking about folding forward, because this pose is not going to do much for the hips, I would move to a wall, so kind of press your back against the wall or a tree trunk or whatever you have nearby, and then just press your chest against the wall, bring your hands to your inner knees, and try to move them down. And that's where we start. That's where you really start to open the muscles and the ligaments and the fascia areas around the hips, okay? Now, if you're a little more bendy and your knees are closer to the floor, you can stay on your prop. You can always come off your prop too. Grab your feet, pull your chest forward, and fold. So, Baddha Konasana, and if you're staying against the wall, just press your knees down with your hands, not too forcefully though, so make sure that you're kind of doing things a little more gently with these stretches. Yeah. And this pose for me is one of these really, good stretches. I feel this along my inner thighs. I feel it along the outer hips. Yeah. This is the area of my body that gets very, very tight. And just like in any forward fold, if you're forward folding, lengthen your front body a little bit. So it's as if you're leading your chin past your feet. Good. Okay. And again, hold this as long as you'd like. On your next inhale, if you're ready for it, come on up. Good. And then straighten your legs out again. Now we're going to do one more thing seated before we lie down on our backs. So once you're on your seat, stretch your legs in front of you. Keep your left leg straight and bring your right foot to the floor with your knee pointing up. Okay. Now once you've done that, place your right hand on the mat behind you or the floor, and then hook your left forearm or elbow in front of your right knee and gently turn the ribs to the right. Yeah. Now notice your right hip, if it starts to lift or if the right knee starts to kind of buckle in. So ground your right sitting bone And then press your right knee a little to the right, so the knee continues to point up. Yeah, and then if you're a little tighter in the shoulders, you can reach your right hand back a little and lean back some. But if you're able to, move your right hand closer to you, sit up as tall as you can, and then twist. Yeah, and you want to try to find the twist from deep in the belly, so we're not moving the hips too much, we're just turning from the waist. Yeah, and if it's comfortable on your neck, look to the back of your space, so towards the wall behind you. All right. Now breathe in. And then as you exhale, look forward, unravel your twist. Take your right leg in front of you. And let's do the same thing on the second side. So place your left foot on the mat. Good. Bring your left hand to the mat behind you. And then bring your right elbow or forearm in front of your left knee. And begin to twist the ribs to the left. Excuse me. Now when you twist the ribs to the left, same thing. Just notice what happens to that left hip. Yeah, so try to anchor the sitting bone. Ground firmly through the left foot, as if you're going to stand on that foot. And really lengthen your spine upwards. So it's like you're using your left arm as a pillar to hold your back up. Yeah, and then keep turning from the waist. Try to move the front of the left shoulder back. Yeah, if it's okay on the neck, turn your head. Good. Twist feels so good on the back. And this one is also a nice stretch for the hips, the lower back. All right. Stay here as you inhale. Now go ahead and look forward and release your twist. Straighten your legs, give the knees a little shake. And now we're going to come onto our back. So if you have a blanket you're sitting on, move it to the side. And I'm going to give you some options for this. So the final pose is thread the needle. Okay, so you'll lie down on your back. And you'll start with your feet on the floor as if you're setting up for bridge, your knees bent, pointing up. Now keep your left foot on the floor, cross your right ankle on top of your left knee. And then flex your right foot. Now from there, bring your left knee close to you. And then weave your hands around your left leg. So your right arm kind of moves in that little space between your legs and your left arm wraps around the outside of the leg. Now depending on how open your hips feel today, you can hold the back of your hamstring. You can also hold the back of your shin bone. One thing I like to do also is stretch my left leg up towards the ceiling and grab a hold of the back of my left calf muscle. So those are some options. Yeah, and ideally your right foot stays flexed. As you bring your ankle closer to you, like using your left leg, press your right knee forward, okay? Now some of us have a hard time with this pose. Maybe you can't quite grab the back of your leg. So here's where having a wall space or something that is like a wall is helpful. So basically you set it up where you're kind of fairly close to the wall and your feet are against the wall. So your knees are bent, you're in a kind of reverse tabletop position. And then you place your right ankle on top of your left knee. And this could be enough. You can just kind of gently press the right knee forward. Some of us can get a little bit closer to the wall, maybe all the way against the wall, and try that. And you want to make sure that your tailbone is on the floor. So you don't want to lift the tailbone up here. All right? So find the one that works best for you. Yeah. And if you're tight, right now, and if you haven't been doing much of these stretches, just, know that it takes time to open these bigger muscle groups, especially the hips and the legs. I teach yin yoga, and the majority of the people that come to that class are bigger, like bodybuilder types or athletes. These people are very, very strong, much stronger than me, but with that strength comes a lot of tightness. So to find balance, you want to, try to stretch out every now and then. Good. And I can hold this pose for a while, so feel free to stay here. Otherwise, we're going to switch sides. So good. Go ahead and place your left foot on the floor. Place the right foot down and then switch. Cross your left ankle on top of the right knee. Bring your right knee towards you. And then press your left knee forward away from you. Good. And feel free to use the wall. Feel free to hold the shin bone. Take your leg up. Good. One thing I didn't mention earlier was a lot of times, big muscles in the back can cause the head to have a hard time dropping back. So I see a lot of times people's heads are like, dropping back, their chin is all the way up. So if that's you, give yourself something to place your head on, like your blanket or some kind of padding. So the head is comfortably on the floor and the back of your neck is long. Okay. Good. And I think it's a good idea, again, to just take some slow breaths while you're holding these poses. If you have the time to hold the poses a little longer, or maybe just pick out some of your favorites and do those and kind of switch them up. And there's a lot more things we can do, and I might do another class again like this, but for now we're going to be done. So go ahead and release your right foot, good, and place your feet on the floor. Just give your knees a squeeze for a moment. Oh, this feels nice. Yeah, maybe a happy baby pose. If you do the happy baby, it's not easy to grab your feet, grab your ankles, or grab the backs of your knees. And get the lower back to press down. Okay, good. And then bring your knees in, rock up to a seat, and you're done. So I hope you enjoyed this, and please let me know, keep me posted on how things are going. I'm going to be doing these stretches myself, and I'm very confident that this is going to help alleviate some of the tightness I've been feeling lately in yoga. So have a great rest of your day. Go in peace. Namaste.